One of the questions we get asked all the time is, should I go to this defense event? Is it a useful place for me to be? Is it a good use of my time? What should I accomplish there? Today, we're going to do something a little different on Crossing the Valley. We're actually going to talk to 3 companies preparing for their trip to SOF Week. SOF Week is one of the largest events in U.S. defense tech. It's multiple days in Tampa, Florida each year. It is a convergence of industry operators, senior to enlisted, every level of the special operations community, and all of the vendors that sell to them or want to sell to them. We caught up today with 3 such companies, and we talked to them about who they are, what they do, what they hope to accomplish down in Tampa, and how they're going to do it. Then we got some feedback for them from a couple of government or former government advisors who have been to many a SOF Week, and they engaged in a little bit of conversation to improve their strategies. This is the first of 2 in this mini-series. Following the event, we're going to do a debrief with these same companies and hear about how it went. The goal in doing this is to make available to you all, our listeners, a little bit more information about how to actually get after it at these events in a way that's going to support your business. So without further ado, I'm excited to introduce our 3 companies. The first is Aurum Systems. Aurum Systems is a seed stage or even a pre-seed New York-based company focused on AI-driven situational awareness. Jason and Miles are Silicon Valley acolytes who pivoted into defense tech and are within the first 12 months of their defense journey. Our second company is Edgerunner AI. They just announced their Series A raise right around SOF Week. They're a Seattle-based startup. They're building generative AI that runs at the edge without the internet. They're partnered with companies like Intel. They're partnered with the Air Force. They just signed a partnership with Second Front Systems. Again, a little over a year in terms of their age and maturity. Finally, our third company is Distributed Spectrum. Distributed Spectrum is a New York-based startup. They announced a $25 million in Series A funding earlier this year. They've already got north of $7 million in DoD contracts. They've won contracts with the special operations community. And their RF sensing platform is deployed in Ukraine and with U.S. special operators today. I also want to briefly introduce our advisors, former government folks who are going to share their opinions with the companies heading down to SOF Week about their approaches and maybe give some tips and pointers. First, we have Dave Roll. Dave is a combat developer for U.S. Army Special Operations Command. He identifies, captures, and develops resourcing strategies for emerging requirements and for Program Objective Memorandum, or POM, products for key emerging capabilities. He's been a special operator for many years, and this is not his first SOF Week. Additionally, we have Scott Moore. Scott is a recently retired Green Beret. He served as the R&D non-commissioned officer in charge and previously as director of operations with the 3rd Special Forces Group. He's now with Cyber Advisors, and he brings a wealth of recent insider knowledge after many years as one of the target customers and someone who planned industry engagement events just like this. So sit back, enjoy, and let's learn a little something from our 3 companies.
Thousands of companies show up to sell their technology to the U.S. Department of Defense each year, but so few will transition from proof of concept to true production across the valley of death. The select few who do, their stories are rarely told. Until now. I'm Noah Sheinbaum, and this is Crossing the Valley.
All right, so first up on this special episode of Crossing the Valley, where we are profiling companies before they head down to Tampa for SOF Week. This episode, once it airs, SOF Week will be in the rearview mirror, but we are talking today on the eve of SOF Week. Our first company is Edgerunner AI, and we're really excited to be joined by Tyler Saltzman and Colton Malkerson. Gentlemen, thanks for hopping on with us. Appreciate you carving out some time as you're, I know, hard at work preparing for a big week next week.
Yeah, Noah, thanks for having us. Happy to be here. Great to be here.
Guys, let's go through this, kind of give us a little bit of the rapid fire of who are you and what is Edgerunner all about? Where are you guys on the journey?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're building domain-specific AI agents for the warfighter that lives right on your device. So think of it as like a chat GPT, a better version, if you will, that never needs the internet, that knows everything about the military, but then more specifically, your MOS as a warfighter. So me, I was a former Army logistician serving on Operation Atlantic Resolve in 2017. I require a much different AI than a tank operator or a combat engineer or an infantry officer. And so the biggest problem with AI today, it's not really usable because it's not domain specific. And what we're doing is we're solving for that. In addition, it's very expensive to use these third-party APIs, these large language models. In addition to that, you have to move your data. So it requires the internet. It requires massive amounts of cost. And then, of course, there's data concerns of having to move your data to them. Unlike what we're doing is bringing the agents right on the device, so your data is safe and secure.
Awesome. It's cool that the story is a little bit personal. I think obviously super timely. AI in the military, I imagine, immensely hot right now. Everyone loves them a little AI. Tell us a little bit about, in terms of your progress as a company. Where are you guys? I know company's fairly new. Where are you in terms of traction, in terms of fundraising, in terms of if you kind of chart your own course across the valley of death, where are you on that journey?
Yeah, Cole, you want to take that?
Yeah, well, actually, maybe it would start with sort of our origin story. So personally, I used to work on Capitol Hill. I worked for Speaker Boehner and Speaker Paul Ryan in DC, then came out to California for business school at Stanford, and then was at AWS and then Stability AI. And Tyler and I actually met at Stability. So we were working together, leading two different teams, and we were sort of in the foxhole together. And we just saw this opportunity for AI at the edge. And then, of course, with Tyler's background, which he can tell you about in a second, we just saw that the application for vertical specific AI for the warfighter at the edge was just too big of an opportunity. So we actually left Stability AI and started Edgerunner last year. So the company is not even a year old at this point. Tyler, maybe do you want to give a little bit about your background and kind of where we've come since then?
Yeah. So before Edgerunner and before Stability, I was actually at AWS. And my mission was to find the next big startup, if you will, that becomes a hyperscaler like Airbnb or Uber. And then I was paid when we won that workload on AWS over like a GCP or an Azure. And so we had this book of business over 5,000 early stage startups. And the objective really is find that diamond in the rough that moves the needle. Well, my team and I, we came across this company called Stability AI. And this was before generative AI was really a buzzword. And it was during COVID when you couldn't get a single GPU. And so the founder, Ahmad, he needed thousands of them. And the vision was, you could talk to a computer and it'll generate an image or a video or a song. And he sort of foresaw that coming. And we leaned in and we had to evangelize internally at AWS, but we built out this 4000 A100, which is the predecessor to the H100, this 4000 A100 ultra cluster. And at the time, that was a top 5 global supercomputer in the world during COVID when you couldn't get a single GPU because of supply chain crunches. And we're proud of adding like a custom solution on top of that. It's actually called SageMaker HyperPod, but it's the ability to train a workload, but being able to swap GPUs on the fly for better redundancy, so you don't have to restart the training load if a GPU were to fail. And this actually allowed Stability to train Stable Diffusion across thousands of A100s and unleash it into the wild. What happened was Stability actually had over 300 million downloads, and Stable Diffusion was one of the most popular open source models of all time for generative AI. From there, we segued into Stability. Again, Colt and I, we met. I was head of supercompute, so I worked in lockstep with all the scientists to train all the different modalities. And that's when we realized we had a core competency of making these models smaller, and these models are really the building blocks which power different applications. And another thing that we saw was the problem with AI today is models aren't products. Think of them as motors that power the product. So we saw it as, all right, we need to build the different motors for the DoD, but also the application layer, which is sort of that ChatGPT-like experience.
No, awesome. You guys have fascinating backgrounds. It's very interesting. You're both kind of experts in your respective domains. So a year in, company's getting some traction. As you guys look to Tampa next week and you think about Soft Week, why is this an event that you guys are deciding to go to? Is SOCOM a customer? Are they a prospective customer? Like, talk us through the rationale to attend the event.
Yeah, and in terms of traction, so we've signed a credo with AFRL, which is great for us. And the objective is to help power NIPR GPT. There's been a lot of buzz about that. So our vision is have this bigger model that lives in the data center environment on the NIPR network. We augment it with adapters, which are LoRa's, which is a lowering adaptation for a large language model. And then those adapters become mission specific or occupation specific. From there, we distill that onto your devices. So now every airman will have their personalized AI. Now, with this vision that we're building with AFRL and the Kratom that we're executing it with, for SOF Week, it's a very similar process in terms of special forces. They need this type of solution. They need to be able to use AI in contested environments and in environments where you don't have connectivity. And so, like, Palantir is great and all, but if you're in special forces and you're out in the field on a mission, you need AI immediately, and you need it without requiring Starlink and internet access. You need something that's mission specific, that's going to help you make better decisions. And our biggest value prop here is, in the military, it's better to make the wrong decision immediately than the right decision too late. Special forces, they know this better than anyone. And in the heat of the battle, you need to make a decision. When things go sideways, it's better to make that decision. And now it's not a silver bullet, but now when we're training on all this military doctrine, we can help you make a very good decision based on military data, which is going to be important. Now, as the human, you don't have to listen to it, but it's probably a pretty good idea. And so now we are able to provide that. Think of it as like the Jarvis to your Iron Man for every warfighter. So this is great for special forces because they'll need this. And we're excited to showcase it in partnership with Second Front.
I think, Noah, one thing I would just really want to hammer home is that, if you are, think of special forces and where they're operating, these are very often in, DDIL environments where you don't have good connectivity. So what we're really specializing in is getting this stuff to run on low power, low compute edge devices, where they're completely air gapped, they're completely local. You can bring all of the intelligence of, ChatGPT and these LLMs, make them domain specific, make them MOS specific, but then have them run in really rugged environments. And that's something that really the Department of Defense and the military has not seen yet. So this is sort of something new that we're pioneering. And a lot of what we're trying to do by going to SOF Week and to go to these other conferences is to sort of evangelize and educate the community about this, because this is really new technology, and the capability to bring this stuff to the edge in truly disconnected environments is quite new. So a lot of times when we meet with folks, this is sort of something that they're learning about for the first time.
Yeah, I think the evangelism and the educational component of sales, especially in the military, especially with a new product where you guys are not just a replacement for something that's been done before. It's kind of a new thing. A lot of interest, a lot of hype, but needs that educational component. Really interesting and hard. So, I'm curious now as we think about, your time down in Tampa and you have a couple days on the ground there, how are you guys thinking about that actual opportunity? How are you going to go about achieving that objective of education and evangelism while on the ground? What does it look like for you?
My biggest objective is to meet as many shop callers as possible and to understand what are their pain points and how do we work backwards from that. And so the more people we can meet at SOF Week that have similar challenges, that maybe we didn't anticipate, or maybe it's a common theme across the board, but wherever it is, to learn as much as we can about the needs of the special forces and then where we can apply our solution. So meeting and greeting, but also just letting people know that we exist. Because to Colton's point, a lot of folks don't know what we build is possible. It's kind of out of science fiction, like, AI without the internet. It's sort of military is kind of like, that exists. Show me. It almost seems to going to be true. And so now it'll be great to show them what it can do.
Also,
Tyler, Colton, before you jump in there, I want to clarify something. You said shot callers, which I think is an awesome shorthand. What do you mean by that? Is that an end user? Is that a PEO? Is that a senior leader? When you say shot caller, what do you mean?
Yeah, as the military looks to procure new technology to help the warfighters, you have different stakeholders. I think of, that there's going to be different stakeholders for different things. So for us, it's the PEOs, the 2-star and 3-star generals, and then of course the warfighter actually using the product. Maybe it's a warrant officer or an NCO, but really we like to meet them all.
And no, I think the other thing too that we try to do at Edgerunner is, partner with other startups in the ecosystem. Frankly, there's not enough, we think, partnership among startups kind of at our stage. So we actually last week, and they're bigger than we, but announced a partnership with Spectrum Systems, where we're going to be partnering with them on their new product for their Frontier AI. So we're actually going to be demoing our product both at our booth, which is booth 3306, although I think this is being released after the conference. But then we're also going to be showcased alongside Second Front at their booth. And then we're also, having a happy hour and kind of event with the Second Front guys. So I think the other thing we're trying to do is find other ecosystem partners that we can work with and sort of, take this technology to the warfighter together. Because 1 + 1 is always 3, in our opinion, and you can't go it alone.
I love it. I think broad surface area and an expansive definition of partnership, super healthy at this stage. Let's go ahead and bring in Scott Moore. Scott is going to join us here in just a second. Scott is an advisor now, has background in government. Not his first SOF week. Scott, welcome. Thanks for hopping in. You've listened a little bit to kind of Tyler and Colton's strategy and their approach to the event next week. What are your reactions as you're hearing that? What sticks out to you, or that there's something that they should know?
Yeah. And so first off the bat, I think, Tyler and Colton, they've got the right mindset, right? They're identifying a problem out there that our war fighters are struggling to solve. And they're like, hey, I've got a solution. Let me show it to you. Let me show how it works. And get into the hands of the warfighter, right? So that takes a lot of confidence, right? And then what you're doing to get it out there and get it to the right people. But yeah, as far as SOF weeks goes, if you're targeting special operations end users and decision makers, like that's definitely the place to be, right? So I go back thinking Tyler's conversation a little bit earlier about the shot callers, right? So if you're going to hit the exhibit hall floor there at SOF week, you're going to see, 3-star generals, you're going to see 2-star generals, you're going to see single-star generals, you're going to see NCOs, you're going to see warrant officers, all these people that make up the capability development community across SOF, right? And each one of them has a very specific role where they fit into it, right? So it's great if you can get in front of one of the 2-star generals, and hey, he's a decision maker. Like, he's going to push stuff across the finish line for us. But the guy you really need to be talking to is that end user who's at the edge with the problem, and then finding a champion to push that along, right? So your active duty soldiers, airmen, Marines, special operations guys, they're only in their positions for like 2 or 3 years at a time, right? So when he falls in love with your product and your solution, the clock is ticking, because that guy's going to move out, and then what he thought was the greatest thing to ever show up in his hands, nobody else cares about, right? So you're kind of at a disadvantage if you're showing up talking to the wrong people at the wrong time. But that shouldn't dissuade you from reaching out and identifying those people, right? If you have a specific capability and a specific capability area, target those individuals, go out there and build that network.
That's right. And, assuming they go on to different units, also that'll help us evangelize, and then maybe they get a contracting gig somewhere. So it's that journey though. Like the more we can build these relationships and folks know who we are. And again, I don't want to be seen as just another software vendor. I want to be seen as like a full-on partner. Running convoys in Eastern Europe and not having actions on decision-making based on my MOS and my mission. Like, now all this has been made it's been made possible with natural language processing. It's like, now I can talk to all the Army's data and all the military doctrine right on my device, because these models are the ultimate compression function for knowledge. And in the military, so many times we would do something and I would question why, and they would say, I don't know, it's the Army way. Well, what is the Army way? The Army way is all this tribal knowledge compressed into, wisdom for NCOs and subject matter experts, but not every NCO agrees. So now we can get all on the same page. We always talk about a single common operating picture. I think this is a way to do it. It's not the way, but it's definitely a way.
Love it. Guys, we're just about at time here. Colton, I'll give you, just come to you here. Any final reflection, question for Scott, closing thought for us here?
No, I would just say, I think the timing is great in general for not only Edgerunner, but kind of defense tech. We actually, this week, we just closed our Series A, which we're going to announce tomorrow. So that gives us more runway to get across the valley, as your name is. But I think, just given everything we're seeing from the DoD and from Secretary Hagseth, like, the mindset is right to acquire the type of technology that we have, both on the software side, but the AI side. And I think we're just really excited to get out there and to meet these folks, because we feel like, there's no time, there hasn't been a better time than now to sort of try to bring these capabilities and give them to the warfighter. So we're excited to get out there next week.
Love it. Congrats, guys, on the Series A. That's a hunting license to keep playing. You guys have earned it. Good luck down there, and we will look forward to circling back with you in just a few weeks.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All right. So next up, our second company in this kind of Soft Week preview that is airing after Soft Week. Jason and Miles from Aurum Systems. Thank you guys so much for making some time. I know you're busy preparing for a big week ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and about Aurum. What is it that you all do?
Yeah, thanks for having us, Noah. So I'm Jason. I'm the founder and CEO of Aurum Systems. My background is in robotics, and I come from the self-driving world. And we're both ex-Silicon Valley guys now in New York City.
Yeah, I'm Miles. I'm the founder and CTO. My background is more on the product development side. I was previously at Google within YouTube's data warehouse, and before that, within Wayfair.
And now we're building Aurum Systems. So Aurum is a software startup building the Atlas platform. And Atlas is designed to transform existing UAVs into independent intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and targeting assets. It's designed to work completely at the edge and in the field, so that operators that are using UAVs can have them, work for them and complete the mission autonomously with minimal input.
That's pretty cool. So tell us about what's the journey been like so far? How long ago did you guys start it? Where are you at in the path? Where's the funding? Where's the team size? Give us the baseball stats, the dirty deets.
Yeah, we started the company about a year ago. And we went through kind of a customer discovery and maybe, a little personal journey. Miles and I were both in Silicon Valley, and we decided to start this company. We decided to move back to the Northeast. And so we spent the summer kind of exploring and talking to, some really great people in the GovCon space. Everyone was actually incredibly helpful in getting us started. And we had this idea coming out of, self-driving in the robotics realm, that there was really amazing technology being built, and it was kind of getting lost in the R&D effort. And that's what led us down this road. Is we wanted to take some of this amazing research and development that was happening and deploy it in a way into a customer that really needed it. And we found ourselves in the defense space, and it's been a really great fit. So we were in product development for the last 6 months, really heads down and focus on building out the Atlas platform. And we actually just did our first public demonstration a couple of weeks ago for US SOCOM at Avon Park Air Force Range. So that was a really great milestone for us, being able to publicly demonstrate the technology for the first time.
Yeah. As far as you asked about like funding and team size and all that, right now it's just us. It's just the two of us. So very small and scrappy team. Funding wise, we raised a small angel round closed in September. Just to allow us to keep going and be able to travel to some of these events and demonstrations and all of that.
That's amazing. No, I love it because there's a narrative sometimes in defense tech that you have to come in with huge backing from extremely wealthy people and go after, and build a huge team right away. Two guys. I mean, this is like the vibe coding of defense tech, right? It's two guys in the yeah, well, it's not quite a garage, but from Silicon Valley in the office in New York, and you got a working demo in front of the government, just the two of you. That's pretty exciting. What's kind of the signal you're hearing as you start to engage customers? What's the reception been like so far?
Generally, the reception is extremely positive. We wanted to focus on building something that people can use today, right? Not in 10 years. And I think when we speak to operators, they can really appreciate that. So we designed this system in a way where, there's lots of amazing American manufacturers that are building, UAVs of all sorts of shapes and sizes. And we felt like, we can take what's fielded today and make it 10 times better with really capable software. And I think operators, appreciate that. We're not intentionally trying to sell them some exquisite system, but we're trying to fit into their existing workflows and make it, work better for them. And so I think, operators really appreciate that.
Totally. I want to hit one more thing before we start talking about Soft Week, which is your order of operations. And I know you talked about doing a discovery process and then you put heads down. Just talk us through how much conviction did you get about the product before you actually put pen to paper, fingers to keyboard, what have you on building? And then, when did you decide, okay, this thing is ready. We're ready to put our heads back up and go engage the people again?
Yeah. So it started off with essentially just conversations, trying to get a good idea and build that conviction. And we pretty much had conversations until the conversations started going with, yeah, that sounds great. Can we see a demo? And then it was like, no, not yet, but give us a little bit and we will come back to you with a demo. And that's kind of when we started transitioning into building, like you said, pretty heads down. And now we're kind of coming back out to start doing more demonstrations and start iterating more with more direct feedback on what we've got.
Perfect. Which is a great segue to where you're going next week, or maybe last week, depending on when folks are watching this. Soft Week. Tell us about your decision-making process, and is Soft Week the first major defense event you guys will be at?
Yeah, I mean, we had, as attendees, we've gone to a couple events, but I don't think they were anything like Soft Week. And to us, where we are in our journey, Soft Week's going to be a great opportunity to really go public with what we're building. We've been kind of in stealth for the last year. This TE event that we attended was the first time we demoed anything publicly. And we've really been working behind the scenes on, being ready for that kind of public eye. And I think Soft Week will have the perfect blend of, operators, acquisition, people in acquisition offices, other startups to engage with, and other companies from industry that might be interested in partnering with us. So it'll be very busy event, and we have a lot on our plate. But we're also really excited to be demonstrating there and to have a booth there.
Cool. So so the plan is to get a booth. And Miles, maybe you got to lay this out for us. How much of your schedule is set where you're meeting certain people at certain times? How much is just surface area for serendipity? What's that look like?
Yeah. So actually I showed my wife our calendar the other day and she was like, you have so many things that are all overlapping. How are you planning on filling out? So it's a combination of things. We're trying to do our homework as much as possible and be prepared for the things we definitely want to attend and see, and the people we definitely want to meet. So we have the booth in Accelerator Alley. We will be there through, I think it's Tuesday and Wednesday, throughout most of the day. But then we're also leaving plenty of time for other engagements. For instance, in the evenings, we have all kinds of things scheduled that may or may not be happening, depending on what seems like is best to go to based on the conversations we have during the day. So it's kind of a plan ahead, but also be flexible approach. We're also taking advantage of, there are several pitch competitions that are happening throughout the week, and are preparing for those and planning on pitching, essentially.
So this is a great point to bring in our government friends, or folks who have been on the government side, not their first Soft Week. Dave Rowland, Scott Moore, thanks guys for being here with us. You've heard a little bit about Jason and Miles' story, a little bit about where the Aurum team is on their journey, and a little bit about how they're planning to attack Soft Week next week. What do you think about their plan? What's strong about it, and where would you push them a little bit?
Hey, I guess I'll start because I met these guys at Global SOF Foundation's Modern Warfare Week here at Fort Bragg last November. And it's exactly what they described. Like, hey, we have this really cool idea for a capability. And my first question is always like, all right, let me see it. And they're like, oh, we're not quite there yet, right? So I understand their frustrations on trying to get the word out there, trying to sell their product, and having a hard time grabbing traction because it's low TRL. But no, it's awesome to hear you guys have a booth. I think Global SOF Foundation's done a great job of letting like the smalls like you guys come in and get some space in the exhibit hall. Whereas, thinking back to like 2017, 2018, like the bigs owned the place. It was hard to get a booth in there, right? So, getting out there, talking to the end users, getting exposure, and really just, strategizing on who to talk to, like where to go, right? So exhibit hall floor, the social events that are happening, like it's all a networking opportunity at SOF Week. So I think these guys are on the right track for sure.
Awesome. Dave, what do you got to add?
Yeah, I want to jump in and thanks for having me on here. And I got to do the disclaimer. Everybody knows where I work during the daytime. I am not here on behalf of any place I might work. I am here on behalf of a ton of experience in the GovCon space as a business development kind of person. Okay, so I'm not speaking for my employer. So first, the same as Scott. I met these guys when I guess it was November, right? Probably. Yeah. November. We talked and had some good candid conversations there, right? So I'd say, first of all, you guys gave the background that said, you're Silicon Valley and you're in the private sector and kind of new to the public sector, and then specifically new to this crazy acquisition system that we have in the government, right? And so I'd say at the very beginning, you guys have probably put a ton of effort into technical specifications and engineering and all that good stuff, right? And you spent money doing that. I would say that that's a part of the equation. The other part of the equation is business development, capture management, sales, whatever we might want to call that. Just like anything else in your company, that's a make or buy decision. You can either learn it yourself, which, I'll see you in 10 years when you learn it, or you can buy it, which means at some point you got to pay somebody to do it for you and not go broke in the process, paying some snake oil salesman that says they can, do this for you. So, this should be if you're going to choose to put money in it, this is a low money venture for you at this point. But still potentially it's a venture, right? So second, you say the operator focus, fantastic, right? Often we'll teach a class called Know Your Role. So if I'm talking to a government person inside the government, I'll say, what is your role? What do you really do in this big system? Are you signing checks? Are you doing source selection? Are you writing requirements? Are you a PM? What are you? And that way I can speak to you correctly. Just like when you walk into a gas station, do you walk up to the first person you see and ask for, whatever it is, change for the machine? Probably not, because that might be a customer. You might, the customer's role is to get out of the way so you can ask the right person for what you need. So as you address a SOCOM TE event or the Accelerator Alley at SOF Week, I would say keep that in mind, which is super difficult for you, but it's okay. One quick thing, if they look like they just walked out of REI, probably an operator. If they're a little bit too old, maybe there's somebody else, right? So know their role, and you're going to have to play this as you go. So how might you do that, right? So at the SOCOM TE, but now at the booth, what you could do is come up with, I've got my 15 to 20 second elevator pitch, and now I've got my demo that I'll do, and I've got a survey. I've got an iPad right here in my hand, and I've got SurveyMonkey, and I'm going to ask somebody to fill it out. So you might take that approach. You're getting direct feedback. You don't need to use the names. You'll just say an operator said, and you might even use this for marketing purposes later. You do a profile, or something like that. So a lot of words from me right up front, but I'll put it back to you, Noah.
No, I love it. Masterclass, David and Scott. Thank you both. Jason, Miles, what questions do you have for folks who have been there more than once or twice, based on what they shared so far?
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about the knowing the role and the different people. That's something we're very aware of. Do you have any recommendations on the most important people to be contacting or to be talking to in terms of like roles? Obviously not like individual people necessarily, but
yeah, for sure. right now, I would say, what are you trying to do? And I'm going to make an assumption that says you're trying to get a development contract of some level, and you're trying to get in front of operators so you can drive operator demand. Those two things are probably where you're at with your business. So there we go. You don't need to chase down the acquisition executive and try to give a pitch. You don't need to chase down all the PMs and PEOs because, maybe you're just literally not ready for that yet. What you're ready for is someone that could potentially sponsor a SIPR contract or similar, and you're looking for operators that you could follow up with. And so that's who you need to be targeting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome. Well, guys, I know we are standing between you and prep for a big week ahead. Really appreciate you making the time to stop in with us. And we're looking forward to hearing from you on the flip side about what went well and what you might change in the future. But I know you're in the early days of the journey here, but you got a lot of progress in a short amount of time. So good luck down there. Have some fun. And we look forward to talking to you in a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We appreciate it. And it was nice talking to all three of you.
Yeah.
Dave, Scott, thanks as always.
Yeah, thanks and good luck. Get ready. It's going to be hot.
Yeah, good to see you guys again. We'll see you next week.
So, Alex Wolf, co-founder of Distributed Spectrum, our third and final feature company for this Soft Week preview episode. Alex, thanks so much for making time, man. I know you're busy and hopping on planes.
Yeah, no worries at all, Noah. Thanks for having me on.
All right, let's kick this thing off. Tell us about Distributed Spectrum. Tell us about your background and where things are at for you and for the company.
Yeah, definitely. So my name's Alex Wolf. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Distributed Spectrum. I've got a background in electrical engineering, which is what I studied in college, but I've always had a very deep fascination with radio waves, which is how we got into the business of where we are right now. So I started Distributed Spectrum alongside two of my really good friends while we were still undergraduates in college. And since then, we've basically started fielding capabilities to help the warfighter understand what's going on in the radio spectrum. So to break that down a little bit, really, there's tons of devices that all rely on radio waves to communicate on the battlefield. Pretty much anything that's communicating wirelessly primarily uses radio waves to do it. So that presents both a pretty big opportunity to both understand kind of what the adversary is doing, where they are, what different systems they're fielding onto the battlefield. But it's also a big vulnerability for our own forces because we also use radio waves to do those same types of actions. So typically what is required in order to help somebody actually gain access to this type of information is both very expensive equipment that is designed to kind of sense and understand these invisible signals, but also a very highly trained human that kind of takes all the data that's coming out of these systems and helps interpret it. So think like, a $10 million or $100 million pod that's fielded on an aircraft, or, a big system mounted into the back of a truck that a trained expert is looking at a bunch of squiggly lines coming out of. So we take all of that kind of typical way of doing things and add really smart software to it to help both those trained experts do their job more effectively, but also provide this type of information directly to the warfighter without necessarily needing that layer of interpretation and expensive hardware in the middle.
I love it. Thanks. And it's a really clear explanation. And I mean, Alex, you guys are killing it. Like not just the fundraising, but you've made real traction and the company's been open for what? 18? How long have you guys actually been running? This point?
Yeah, so we started Distributed Spectrum about 4.5 years ago, but really we kind of hit the ground running in 2022, right after we graduated from college. So raised our seed round, moved down to New York City, and then we recently just raised our Series A. So, been operating the business for a while with just my co-founders and myself, but since graduation, we've been able to actually start fielding capability out to the warfighter, which has been a really, really rewarding experience to see people take what we've built and actually start using it to affect some of their missions.
It's incredible. Yeah, tell us a little bit about where you're at in terms of the customer journey. Are you in pilots? Do you have recurring revenue contract? Like, give us just a sense of the business side of where things stand.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a few pretty exciting different pilots that we're working on across a few different customer bases. So doing some work right now with a few different Army groups to help field capabilities, both on the kind of small UAS side of things to help identify different adversarial activity on the battlefield kind of pretty easily beyond visual line of sight. Also working on a few different projects through entities like the Defense Innovation Unit to help basically apply our software to solve some more of the exquisite problems and mission sets that are out there. So, we're at the point where we have a pretty exciting, group of end users that are actually starting to use our capabilities, starting to provide us that feedback. And now we're, really looking to grow out the team to kind of help expand upon some of that access and some of those pilots that we've already gotten and help us, really basically apply our software and apply some of the hardware capabilities that we build to solve new mission sets in the battlefield.
Awesome. So to lay that out, kind of a number of pilots across number of exciting customer groups. And so you all are interested. You didn't just go, some people take the one approach of one pilot, then convert to one, program, and then convert to one kind of program of record. You all are saying, hey, let's stock the top of the funnel a little bit more, do a couple of pilots at the same time, and then hopefully convert those into more programs and grow from there. Interesting strategy. I think it makes a lot of sense. And you guys have a lot of traction so far. It's really exciting stuff. Coming up next week, you're heading down to Soft Week. Alex, you've been before. Give us your take on the value of Soft Week and why it's an event that you at Distributed Spectrum at this stage of the company think is worth attending.
Yeah, definitely. So I think Soft Week brings together, three pretty unique and interesting groups of stakeholders into, what can best be described as just a good setting for doing business. The Department of Defense and government business is really all a relationship game. It's all about getting in person with the customer, building those relationships, building that trust. And events like Soft Week, really kind of provide the perfect venue to do that. And that aspect of just needing to have these face-to-face conversations is something that, we didn't necessarily know as much about when we were first starting out in this industry. And I think we've come to really recognize the value in it. So those three groups is basically folks on the acquisition side to help, both understand, where their priorities lie, the types of systems they're looking to field, and how they're thinking about, how the, operators basically need access to certain types of equipment in the future. The second group is the end users, the operators themselves, to hear, some of that on the ground perspective, understand the challenges they're facing on a day-to-day basis, and even get some touch points with our own physical prototypes. And then the third group is other partner companies. So, companies that we can partner with to both add our software to, or things like host platforms for our sensors that we can work with to help build unique capabilities that can get after some of those problems that we're learning about. So Soft Week's a great setting to do all three of those, both independently and at the same time too, in some cases.
Awesome breakdown, sophisticated framework, very clean, very easy to understand. Appreciate that, Alex. Talk to us now about the tactics of your time on the ground there in Tampa. What, you've laid out those groups, you've laid out your objectives. What does this look like? Does this mean your schedule is absolutely booked end to end for 3 days? Does it mean you're kind of working the floor and just kind of seeing what happens? How many people are going down with you? Give us some of the brass tacks of how you're approaching this.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we tend to do a little bit of scheduling up front, but also just do a lot on the fly. Everybody's schedule is kind of in flux. Last year, I was just on my phone constantly trying to get in touch with different people, or, try to make meetings work that, had to push based on me or like other factors that come up. So I've got, a pretty solid slate of things that I've scheduled. Like some of the things like PEO meetings, you kind of have to schedule well in advance just because of how, the schedules end up filling out. But, a lot of folks on both the end user side and the other companies are kind of doing this similar thing and, bouncing around a lot. So have a pretty good slate of initial meetings and then going to be also doing a lot of stuff on the fly. Also the social events at Soft Week are pretty fun. They're good opportunities to kind of get everybody together in one setting, not necessarily have to talk about business too, which is really nice. Just get that time to interact with, our customers and our partners in more of a fun setting and really build up some of those relationships. So yep, as far as, this event goes, we typically bring, either 1 to 2 founders and then some of the folks on kind of our business development side of things too. So.
Are you guys doing a booth this year? You just walking the floor?
Yeah, we're not going to be doing a booth. I think that we're still small enough where our time is best spent on the move and trying to go chase down different people we want to talk to, setting up meetings in different places, being able to give demos and settings that are a little bit quieter, a little bit away from the chaos. I think we're definitely, going to grow to that point at some point. But at least, with 16 people right now, kind of every second counts, every moment counts. So we want to maximize that.
Awesome. Great. Well, let's bring in our resident advisor, our retired Green Beret, the former Deputy Director of Research and Development down at Fort Bragg, Scott Moore. Scott, you've been listening to Alex. You've heard a little bit about Distributed Spectrum, where they're at as a company and how they're getting after the event down at Soft Week. Let's just start with your initial reflections. What do you think about Alex's plan of engagement there?
Yeah. So Alex and I were in the green room here talking a little bit about Soft Week and prior events that we've attended and stuff like that, and common acquaintances. But let me start with this, right? Like, being at USASOC headquarters, listening to General Braga over the last 2 years I was there. His message was, hey, the people are our platform, right? The first soft truth is people are more important than hardware, right? So I think Alex's plan to go down there and talk to stakeholders, engage PEOs, capability developers, and then other businesses to talk and discuss collaboration. I think that's key, right? So you could have the best piece of equipment out there, but if you're not building those relationships and talking to the right people, you're not going to go anywhere, right? So good to hear that. And then, to his point, it's going to get chaotic down there. You could have the best, shiniest, most, detailed itinerary, but as soon as you hit the ground, you're going to bump into somebody, and everything's going to go sideways. So just be able to flex, get to some of those social events is key to building those relationships.
Yeah, when you think about, Scott, for company at Distributed Spectrum's kind of like stage of growth, where a couple of pilots, but kind of starting to think about how to transition and trying to get those early wins on the board. What do you think's the one or two most important things for Alex and a team like Distributed Spectrum to achieve at an event like this versus in the normal day-to-day operations of running the business?
So I think number one, and Alex hit on it, right, was understanding the problem sets that software operators have, right? There's all of this, intelligence and signals out there that, me as an operator, I can't analyze that and make sense of it, right? So keying in on like reducing the cognitive load of our operators is huge, right? So the fact that him and Distributed Spectrum are doing that really kind of grabs the attention of soft operators, right? And Soft's unique in is it's a bottom-up driven development organization, right? The end users are out there experiencing the problems firsthand, and they come back and like, hey, this is the problem I need to solve. And then capability developers go out there and find those solutions and bring them back. I think what's also unique about doing business with Soft is rapid acquisition and agility, right? We prefer like an 80% solution over like that 100% solution any day, right? Like, get it to where it's fieldable, get into the hands of the operator, get it deployed, and then let them come back and provide some feedback and go, hey, tweak this, adjust that. And then, over time you get exactly what you need. But it's out there, it's serving a purpose. So I think they're on a good trajectory right now.
Yeah. Alex, I'm curious if, as you guys are thinking about your plan down there, any questions or curiosities where you're like, man, if we had a government sage who was kind of guiding us, I would love to know if you have questions for Scott, or if there's anything you're thinking about your strategy that maybe you're still a little unsure of, or maybe you wanted to run by someone who's been through it. I don't know, Scott, a dozen or two times.
I've attended Soft Week probably about 5 or 6 times, with a break for COVID in 2020. But
yeah, no, I think the big thing for us is basically, kind of doing exactly what you were describing, Scott, of taking, that extremely valuable feedback that we're getting from the operators about just super simple problems they're encountering in their missions. So like, for example, some of the earliest problems that we heard about were from people on the SOCOM side of saying things like, hey, if I'm being jammed, I don't have any way to actually tell if that's the case or if my radio is malfunctioning. Or even, other stuff of saying like, hey, even if there's an adversary, keying up their radio off in that direction, unless I have, the one guy in my team that has signals training or the one, really expensive piece of equipment, I'm not going to be able to tell that they're there. And actually taking that, information and contextualizing it across the broader fight and how SOCOM, fields equipment and develops capabilities is stuff that I think we have, spent a lot of time learning and still have a lot more to learn too, as we, interact with folks on both the acquisition side, but also down at the end user level. So, kind of taking some of those pieces of feedback, contextualizing them across the broader, basically different struggles that SOCOM faces, different, kind of global mission sets that they're going after has always been really helpful for us. And getting, that government take on, hearing those individual pieces and putting them together into a bigger picture and helping us build a product strategy around it is always something that we find, super valuable.
Awesome. Alex, super helpful. Last question for you before we let you go, and then we'll look forward to circling back with you in a couple of weeks here to get the debrief. What are you using? What metrics or what heuristics are you using to gauge success for you in this engagement? What is success for the next week look like for you, Alex, and for Distributed Spectrum as a team?
So, we have a few different projects that we're working on right now that we have, pretty tangible things we can do to move those along. And Soft Week's going to be a great place to do that. So I think that's kind of one of the first things is, just making progress on a few different objectives that we have, both on existing projects, also, business development objectives for either us to learn more about different things, kind of expose different stakeholders, different aspects to our product or our business. So those are kind of the easy ones. I think on the partner side, there's a lot of different areas that we want to expand into. So we have, a few different meetings we've been setting up, a few different ideas around things like different places where we want to put our sensors, different places that we want to embed our software inside of. So, making those relationships and building, a tangible plan towards actually being able to execute on those, I think is going to be great. And getting that face-to-face interaction, obviously always helps kind of push that kind of stuff forward. And then the last piece of it, is just spending some time with some of our customers that are going to be down there to kind of hear, it has their conception of the, both risk and value in understanding the radio spectrum changed. SOF operators are always taking information that they're learning and always kind of putting that back into, how is this going to affect future fights? How is this going to affect my mission? So kind of getting those touch points, understanding how their view has changed, I think is going to be really valuable too.
Fantastic. Alex, thanks for making time. Scott, thanks for joining us here. Good luck to you down in Tampa. We're rooting for you in the Distributed Spectrum team, and we'll look forward to hearing from you in a couple weeks here to see what you learned.
Yeah, it sounds great. Really appreciate you guys having me on.
All right.